Good afternoon, everyone. So this is a third day, day 3 of Line Developer Day 2020. And the discussion today is a Start a Tech podcast today. We invited front-end engineers from Line, and we would like to have the discussions. I am in charge of the ad and also application tracking at Line. My name is Kawasaki. I am an engineer as well. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the members. So first of all, Tamada-san, please. Yes. I am Tamada. I work at Line Front-End Development Center. I am actually developing different kinds of front-end applications. And also we have a Daikon. We have a Daikon management system. So I am in charge of that as well. So Alan-san, please. Yes. My name is Alan Dávalos, and I belong to Line Front-End Development Center as front-end engineers. So Line Live and also Line website engineers, I think we are developing those products as well. So Hanatani-san, please. Yes. Also, I belong to Line Front-End Development Center. I usually do the live broadcasting, and also I am in charge of podcasting, which I'm going to talk about later. Okay, so UIT, we are doing the podcast UIT. So maybe Hanatani-san, would you please elaborate on that? So what we do as a podcast is a UIT INSIDE. Well, every week we communicate front-end information. That's a purpose. And starting from March 2019, we started this podcast media. So usually it's about 20 to 30 minutes podcast, and front end and also the real discussions in the field. We try to communicate the latest discussions. Today we are going to post another podcast, which is the 69th issue. Well, thank you. So you have quite a long history, yes. So what kind of contents and what kind of contents are quite popular? Yes. Well, front end, we actually broadcast different aspects of the front end. Well, what is popular is framework, maybe framework or Vue or others. These are something which people want, and I think this is sort of demanded by the users or developers. And that's usually popular. The most popular is episode 10. That has the biggest viewership. It's about the React discussion. I'm sure that different kinds of discussions can be in React discussion, but what kind of a context? Well, so React, in terms of the React, recently maybe Vue is more popular, or maybe React. I would say the latest features or functions on React, and also UIT INSIDE. Well, how we use these in ourselves. That's usually quite popular. So you are showing the practical examples, and developers may be able to utilize those information for their own purposes. Okay, understand. So I'm sure that you have different speakers or cast members who appear on this podcast. So Alan-san, maybe are you familiar to that? Yes. Well, personally, I like UIT INSIDE, especially, well, we have core members, of course, but we have maybe over 60 episodes, and over 50 participants appeared on those episodes, both inside and outside of the company. So you can actually listen to the different people's stories. So that's what I like about UIT INSIDE. Well, yes, I think you invite the external speakers as well. Who are Vue.js? Kazbon-san was also appearing. I don't know if I can name it or not, but yes. Well, different people appeared on podcast, and they were talking about what they were good at. Or maybe they can actually give the advice, consultation. Okay. So next is So maybe the speakers are cast both inside and outside, and you are trying to kind of pick up who could be the speaker for the next episode. What's the process? How do you look for those speakers, possible speakers? Well, in my case, I usually say I set up the theme for the specific episode, and then I usually look for someone who I personally want to listen to. So if it's an outside speaker, I usually look for those speakers via Twitter, and I actually invite him or her if they can be interested in appearing or talking on our podcast. If it's internal, then maybe people who are involved in the certain products, maybe I can actually approach to those internal employees so that he or she can talk about those topics. So what's your first word whenever you're trying to invite? You have to attract those people to participate. So how do you introduce your podcast? Well, recently, UIT INSIDE is quite popular. I think internally, front engineers, most of the front engineers in our company know about this UIT INSIDE. So if I say, do you want to appear on UIT INSIDE? They know what I'm talking about. So it's quite easy to recruit the speakers. Okay, so UIT INSIDE, it's about 10 to 20 minutes episode, right? So you have quite a lot of episodes for 10 to 20 minutes. So how long do you take for recording? Well, every time, maybe 20 to 40 minutes. So that's usually the length of the episode. If it's too long, then maybe the discussion might be diverting from the original topic. So we want to make it precise and brief, so that we can introduce what we would like to. So that's how we are creative. So you are trying to contain within 10 to 15 minutes. Do you have a specific purpose? Well, yes, we try to be careful about that. Podcast, which is usually 90 minutes or 2 hours, I think listeners might get tired because those 90 minutes or 2-hour podcast may include some of the not really important stories. But when people listen to when they are commuting, I think they should just get the information. They should be able to catch up the latest news. So that's why we put the outline from the start, not the script, but maybe the just talking point or outline, so that the speakers can stick to the specific topic. But maybe let's say after show from the event, those are the stories or episodes which should include some of the back end stories or behind the scenes stories. So we try not to limit the length. So in principle, you try to focus on the specific technology, but in some cases, you may want to kind of have a broader or longer episode. Okay, so what is good at having podcast? When do you think you like having this job? Well, what is impressive is the newcomer who joined our company in this year, and he or she said that I listen to UIT INSIDE every week or every episode, and that really made me be inspired. I really was happy to hear that people listen to our program. Well, yes. What about you, Tamada-san? Yes, I have a similar thing, but since I am involved in this podcast, I can actually approach to the different people because I wanted to listen to those people, and I can actually satisfy my own curiosity. Well, I can talk to the external people, and also maybe I can talk to the internal people through this podcast program. I joined the company in 2019, and since then I was involved in this podcast, and because of that, I was able to talk to a certain person or some people, or maybe I can actually talk and listen to the specific technology topics. So I now have quite versed in both inside and also outside of the company. Sorry, I may just go back and forth, but you have already over 60 episodes. How many speakers in total? so far over this 60 episodes? 55. I counted once, and it was 55 speakers. So every time you have another new speaker joining on board? Well, yes, yes. What about you, Hanatani-san? Well, what is interesting is I used to be involved in the print or text media. So UIT Inside, well, Kawasaki-san actually said that, we want to actually communicate or blog every week. So text media is blog and other form. But when it comes to the voice contents, audio contents, this is quite a new challenge for me. So I am able to be involved in this program every week, and that really is my inspiration.
Well, that's true. Every week, when I want to stream or distribute something, I said maybe blog would be good. But people said, no, blog is not a trend. It's a podcast that's on trend. So at time, I did not think it would be so happy to be able to be engaged in this initiative. So we tried to do in 2018, end of 2018, to try to do UIT Inside. And Tamada-san, the very first day, joining in April 2019, the first day you have to try to work on this pod site, right? Yes, 2 weeks after joining on, I was also have to appear on the pod site. So I think the second broadcasting, I appeared the second time, I think. So inside the company, regardless of the history of what the tenors are with Line and Company, many people are just asked to appear. So old people joining in, there are many different stories that the people are eager to learn. So that's the reason why you have been asked to appear on Podsite. That's a good thing as well, because the new people who join in, that personality and technological, of course, preference also could be known through Podsite. So you don't have to work together next to you. And when you appear on the Podsite, people know, okay, Alan, like web component. We all know that. So that's, I think, a side effect that we can achieve from appearing on the pod site. I agree with that, because mine front-end engineer, I was asked, what is it like? And I said, look at the pod site. Listen to the pod site, So I think in terms of the ambience and atmosphere of Line Company could be well understood through this, I think, media. So at the beginning, when I was really working hard as an editor in GarageBand, it was hard. But what's the situation now? Well, Kawasaki-san have left the GarageBand, and I have decided to be the centerpiece of the GarageBand, but the PR members also are helping us on that. So it's 50-50 in terms of the editing work that I'm being involved. So therefore, recently, our burden is now less and less. So that's the situation. I see. It seems as though that companies line the contents that we distribute. Is there any censorship in terms of checking if the contents is okay or not? How do you run this part of the business? Well, in that sense, basically, every week on Friday, 6 p.m., we launch and distribute a podcast. So the day before, in the nighttime hours, we would pass over the completed sort of a video or sound to PR. And if it's not a problem, then we will then release that on the next day on 6 p.m. So Monday and Tuesday, we would conclude the recording and shooting, and then editing on Wednesday and Thursday, and then releasing that on Friday. So that's a cycle within 1 week. I see. Thank you very much for that. So then, well, if there's any questions or comment, we would like to wait for those comment and questions, but it seems as though there's none so far. So not to conclude, but in the future, those people who are interested in launching a podcast service, is there any message or tips? Any things that you need to warn them, any area that could be of interest? It could overlap with the question that has been already asked, but can I ask everyone? So who we're going to start? So I would like to start. Tamada-san. Okay. So UIT Inside. What's great about UIT Inside is that it's continued for 2 years now. That's one thing, the longevity. Because to continue, to keep the high motivation is very hard to do. And in my case, of course, it's an internal company advertisement in a way, so that's included. But besides from that, on top of that, my motivation and keeping and sustaining my motivation to be able to distribute to keep my interest, then you'll be able to link that to the longevity of that service. So Tamada-san, personally, what intrigued you the most? What was the favorite episode? Well, recently, Next.js Bird 10 has been released, and that breaking news of that was released in the midnight hours on the next day on the shooting. Next day, then we were able to introduce that right away, and at the same time, I wanted to listen to that content as well, and I felt that I had made my contribution. So that made me really happy. I see the listener were really intrigued and interested. I think it's really important. So I hope you tune in as well. So Ada-san, maybe next. Yes. I must say that Tamada-san mentioned and touched on this already, but every week by week, keeping up with that, I think it's the benefit of UIT INSIDE. In other words, there's no break. Every week, continuously. We don't have any time or window that we decided to give up. So it's really a hard work and persistent work for releasing this every week. And also Tamada-san also mentioned that the area of your interest and introducing that on the content, you can have fun. So then audience would also be able to resonate with the fun that we have. So areas or themes, we don't have to force in trying to offer that in the content. So something that interests you, something that really makes you exciting, you need to release that on the podcast. That would be enough. So Hanatani-san, please. Well, podcast media. When we see a high, of course, resonance, you want to seek the quality. But when you try to do editing too persistently, it is going to be a hell. There's no end to editing. So we have to be careful. Yes, AI and those, of course, things. AI, I'm sure we're saying that the other, of course, words, we need to try not to be too specific. Otherwise, editing time will be double if you are too persistent. So important is to continue the release of the content. So you need to have a sense of good balance. So in the comment, there are some persistence in terms of the equipment that you shoot for the podcast. Well, what are you using for mic and other devices? I use EET. Oh, I see. It's remote. So I see. So each of the environment, I think we try to shoot that. So not too persistent about the devices, but the most important thing is to continue and not give up. Yes. So the quality of the sound, maybe it could be a reasonable, low-price mic. But if you buy a premium, of course, microphone, the quality of the sound will also go up as well. I see. I wanted to ask more questions to the group, but unfortunately, we only have a few more minutes to go. So with that, we would like to conclude this session of how we be able to offer an interesting podcast. So please give us your comments on SNS. That also would help us to motivate our further work. And our podcast, if you're interested. And please, on the comment, please, there are some links that has been attached at UIT INSIDE. Please search UIT INSIDE and you'll be able to enjoy a lot of contents. So there are a lot of interesting stories that you'll be able to discover. So with that, all the viewers, thank you very much for the session of Start at Tech broadcast today. So I hope to see you in the podcast next time. So goodbye.